For me, the Galaxy S10 is a significant milestone. It was the first flagship to sport a punch-hole selfie camera and is the last true flagship to sport a headphone jack. But it has been an year and a half since the Galaxy S10 was announced, and that warrants the question of whether the Galaxy S10 is still worth buying in 2020. Well, I am Rohan from TechieTechTech, and together, let's find out. The moment you pick up the Galaxy S10, you instantly know you've picked up an expensive object. The slim profile of the body combines with the smooth, refined glass front and back with the glossy aluminum bands in the middle, all combining to make a package that screams premium. The contrast of the all-black camera module to the pearl white on a Galaxy S10 Plus looks fabulous. Of course, there's the Bixby key below the volume rocker, which is annoying initially but insanely useful once you remap it. Do not forget the headphone jack, our old friend, which is present at the bottom besides the USB Type-C port. I'm being completely honest here, I much prefer the design language of the Galaxy S10 over the Galaxy S20. Now, one thing in the Galaxy S10 that I don't prefer over the Galaxy S20 is the display. See, while the colors are gorgeous and the saturation, vibrance, resolution all are on point, I would have loved to see a higher refresh rate panel here. It is not a deal breaker for most of the people, but the difference is noticeable if you've used a higher refresh rate display before. But apart from that, the display on the Galaxy S10 Plus is just perfect. The crispness of text, the larger than life colors and the overall vibrancy gives the top of the line multimedia consumption experience. Given the choice between an average looking 90Hz panel and a Samsung S10 level 60Hz panel, I would definitely always pick the Galaxy S10's display. Let's talk about software and performance now. I wasn't the biggest fan of Samsung's Android skin One UI, but that has changed over time. One UI actually flows really smoothly now and actually has a nice set of additions over bare bones chalk Android. Granted, it is not the fastest feeling Android skin, and yes, there are a number of Samsung services pre-installed, but once you get used to it, you realize that it genuinely isn't that big of a deal. The overall performance, be it app launch times or memory management, is great and slowdowns are very rare, if any. Also, with Samsung recently committing to giving 3 years of software upgrades to the whole Galaxy S10 lineup, I am confident that the Galaxy S10 will comfortably last at least 2 more years. I never thought I would say this, but One UI is definitely growing on me to the point where I actually miss it once I move to any other device. When we talk about gaming, I was actually pleasantly surprised to see good performance. But why was I surprised? I mean, this is a respectably powerful flagship, so good performance is expected, right? Well, you're right here, except that this is the Exynos version, which has been criticized a number of times for being inferior to its Snapdragon counterpart. But without dwelling too deep into that conversation, gaming was actually a great experience. It almost seems like they took an year but finally optimized their games for the Exynos 9820 CPU, because I can swear that the PUBG playing experience on this phone is better than what I had on an Exynos Note 10 Plus and the latest Exynos S20 Ultra. Strange times, definitely strange times. But for what it's worth, the Galaxy S10 Plus is a great device performance wise, and I'm sure it won't feel inadequate for any kind of user. So let's talk about the cameras on the Galaxy S10 Plus now. The S10 Plus has a total of 5 cameras with 3 modules on the rear and rest of the shooters on the front. Since the launch, Samsung has pushed several software updates to improve the camera performance of the S10 Plus. Let's dig deeper and find out how a 1-year-old flagship performs in such a dynamic smartphone camera market. As always, we'll talk about the photos first and then move on to the videos. So the primary 12-megapixel camera takes excellent pictures in all scenarios, including low light and indoors. Thanks to the improved image processing and seamless switching of dual aperture, the S10 Plus delivers cleaner and sharper stills. Based on the shooting environment, the camera automatically switches between f1.5 and f2.4 aperture. In simple terms, a dual aperture lens is a mechanical hole with two different hole sizes which adjust the amount of light that hits the camera sensor to produce a well exposed picture. Samsung has also nailed it with excellent autofocus, HDR and stabilization on the primary camera. The ultra wide angle lens is really wide. It's the same 12mm camera module as that on the Note 10 Plus and takes fairly good stills. The HDR processing and distortion correction make up for the lack of autofocus. The S10 Plus is one of the few smartphones which actually shoots good indoor pictures with the ultra wide angle camera. Now, one weird thing that we noticed while testing the 16MP ultra wide camera was that the pictures were grainy in the corners even in well lit shots. The 2x telephoto camera takes pictures with rich colors and a high dynamic range. Even though it's just 12MP, the amount of details and sharpness is respectable for a year-old flagship camera. Moving to the front, there is a 10MP camera along with an 8MP depth sensor module. The 10MP selfie camera has a regular 6.5MP selfie mode and a wide angle mode which takes the full resolution 10MP stills. Therefore, the front camera takes 6.5MP pictures by default. Apart from the resolutions, the front camera takes selfies with accurate skin tones and really good HDR processing. Now, thanks to the 8MP front-facing depth sensor, the portrait shot with the front camera are sharp and subject separation is really good. Samsung has improved the low light performance of the S10 Plus over the past year with frequent software updates. So while it was a problem at the beginning, the night mode works on both the rear and front cameras now. The overall low light performance is really good even in dark environments with minimal ambient lighting. One minor hiccup is the presence of a yellowish hue in some photos. Moving on to the videos now, the S10 Plus does a really good job with all of its cameras and supports various resolutions and frame rates. The color rendering, HDR processing and stabilization on the S10 Plus work together to deliver excellent footage via the primary camera. The 4K videos shot outside on all the cameras are vibrant and exposed properly. The autofocus speed is also respectable if we compare it with today's flagship cameras with laser autofocus. The lack of autofocus in the ultra wide angle camera was felt while taking close-up videos of objects. Now swinging to the front camera, it does a very good job in daylight with accurate skin tones. The 4K footage out of the front camera is also good enough for a regular user. Now low light videos are exposed very well thanks to OIS and the wider apertures, but I do feel that the S10 Plus somewhat lags behind in the noise processing department. Now other notable features of the S10 Plus include a dedicated manual video mode, filters, AR features and HDR10 Plus shooting and playback support. To conclude, Samsung has been consistently improving the camera performance of the S10 series. In fact, back in April 2020, the S10 Plus received features like single take, night hyperlapse and a pro video mode from the S20 series via a software update. It's true that the S10 Plus does not have a high resolution camera sensor. The major issue with the high resolution sensor is you lose out on the dynamic range. High megapixel count does not translate to great picture quality. Instead, a camera with lower resolution and better image processing which can capture more information will be considered a better smartphone camera. So if you're a camera enthusiast looking for a smartphone with adequate camera hardware to play around with and excellent image quality which gives plenty of space to experiment, you just cannot go wrong with the Samsung Galaxy S10 Plus. Talking about the battery life, the results are kind of average here. The Galaxy S10 Plus that I'm using here was bought at launch and was used every day since then. After this long-term usage, I can manage to get around 4 to 5 hours of SOT, which basically translate to a day's worth of use, but definitely not any more than that. If you're buying a new device, you will of course get better battery life. In typical Samsung fashion, there is support for fast charging, fast wireless charging and reverse power sharing. All features on board. Another ridiculous Samsung extra that I loved on this phone is the built-in Oximeter, which lets you measure your blood oxygen saturation in the Samsung Health app. With the COVID pandemic going on, this is an incredible tool to have built into your phone. It's a shame that just like the headphone jack, this is the last Samsung phone to include this kind of hardware. I would also like to talk a bit about the ultrasonic fingerprint sensor. It's slower than the old off-screen sensors and slower than the optic fingerprint sensors. But it is accurate and you can use it without waking up the screen. So over time, I actually got used to it to the point that I don't really mind having it. The call quality and signal reception were also great with this phone, and just like other Samsung flagships, the Galaxy S10 provides an excellent top-of-the-line phone call experience. To conclude, should you buy the Galaxy S10 Plus now? Definitely. Samsung tends to offer generous discounts on last year's flagships, and if you're getting one for a good price, which I'm sure you will, I can confidently recommend this phone. It's a phone that I wouldn't mind using on the daily for the next 2 years. If this video helped you out, please subscribe, like and share it with your friends and family. It really helps us out and doesn't really take too much of your time or your effort. Thank you for watching. This has been Rohan from TechieTechTech and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.